Good morning, everyone. We just had a bit of a pre-show, which I'm going to cut out shortly once this video is uploaded to YouTube. But yeah, we've got some great, exciting things that I can share with you today. There's been quite a bit of news, rumours, things like that are going on. So I'm going to share all those with you. I've also been following the Jason Lanier Angry Photographer shoot that's going on. That's going to be funny once that's started to be posted out. It's good to see those two guys get together. It's going to be quite exciting, I think, so I can't wait to see how that goes. I like both of them, so it's going to be interesting. I've just got a comment from Gilbert TV up there. He lives in Manchester, England, and I just said my family actually came from Preston, which is very close to there. So I was there last year. I'll be probably going out there again next year. So yeah, we may be able to get together for a shoot or something, Gilbert. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a talk about some of the things that are being released soon. Ulix just said it's 6 degrees. It says 9 degrees at the moment here in Melbourne. Yeah, it's cold. I think it's a top of 15 today. It's a bit chilly. It's especially when you've got no hair like me. I have to wear a beanie. Marcus has just said that the biggest Sony news is for them too, for sure. So let's go to the news anyway, because I'm going to switch to that because I've got so much to get through. So I want to start to cover it as well. So let's come down to here. Now, I'm not sure if you all know, but I woke up this morning and I've seen that there's stacks of new firmware that's just been released, that's come out, and it's basically come out for a number of articles. Now, I'm going to put these links for you in the comment box down below, so you can get to these links later on if you want to actually see them. This is one from Brian Smith. It was also shown in the Sony Rumours, but this is good because it gives you a quick link down the bottom to the actual upgrades. And so the upgrades are the Sony A7 II, the Sony A7R II, Sony A7S II, A6500 and the A6300 have all had firmware upgrades this morning. And I've also noticed that the A9 upgrade is now back online too, because that's disappeared for a few days, and it's actually back online this morning. I've just noticed it's here. So it is back on, and I tried to download it and it is available. So if you did need to upgrade your firmware for the A9, it is now available. I'm not sure why they took that off, which is a bit weird, but it's still got the same firmware number, so I'm not quite certain what has changed with that. Perhaps they wanted to release that update the same as all the other updates, so I'm not really sure whether there was an issue with that or not. I installed it from the initial upgrade, so I'm hoping everything's okay. Just let me check some questions before I go on to this news. Yeah, Gilbert said we'll have to catch up. Yeah, that'll be great. He's also going to update his A6500. Now, looking at these updates, some of the things that I was talking about in one of the live broadcasts a while ago about the Star Eater has been addressed. It does give this, Brian Smith features all the updates that have actually come through. So he does it by list of cameras, which is the A7R2 and the S2. And basically, it's got things like it's now fixed the same temperature features that the A6500 had, that it'll keep going if you put it onto the higher rating, and it won't shut down so early. So that can be a real advantage. But I haven't really had any issues with the A7R2 with overheating anyway, but it has now got that feature in there as well. The other thing too, it's saying it improves the operability with AF area is set to flexible spot, and there's details that you can click in. So they've actually improved the AF with that flexible spot mode. And this is interesting too. It's add the live view display info into custom buttons. Well, basically what it's saying is you can now assign the live view display into a custom button, which is good because that does really annoy me sometimes, not being able to have that feature. So that now has been added into that firmware update. Hi Hussein, how are you? Ulika said, yes, I saw new firmware, but strange to see they add temperature indicators to the A7. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but there must be a reason why it's been added on there. The other thing too is, so you can now do the live view display in a custom button, which can be a really good thing because I do use that all the time, especially if I'm switching sort of between the live view and the EVF. It also saying that you can set file name function. So I'm wondering whether that gives you the ability to rename your file name. In other words, at the moment, one of the issues is if you've got multiple cameras like I have, like two A7s, or a couple of A7R2s, the file naming's always the same. I'd love to be able to name it A7R1 or A7R2, so that they don't get mixed up in the file naming. Then you don't have that potential to write over the files again. So I'm hoping that's what that means. I'll have to download it to test it, but I'm hoping that's what it means. The other thing too is it's saying that it also adds support now. Supports visible light LED and external flash. And this is for the HVL F45RM, which is this flash here that Sony have just released recently. So it looks like it's going to be able to use this light to give you focus in low light conditions. So that's going to be a really, really good feature. I'm just going to take this news thing off. That's going to be a really, really good feature if that's available. Now, I'm not sure whether that feature is going to be available in some of the other Sony flashes, and I'll talk to you about that when I show the gear I use. But that could be a really, really good thing. So I may even think about getting this flash. If that's the only one that will give you that function for low light scenario, I may think about purchasing this myself. It's saying it's available. This is the Australian site, available soon, but I noticed on B&H this morning that it's already available in the States. So it is already available there. So Kiram said, I didn't know you weren't able to switch into live view display before. I've always had the C3 set to switch to live view and EVF. Yeah, I'm not sure what that function actually means, Kim. I'll have to check it when I actually upgrade that firmware, what it means by the into custom button, this, what's it called, assignation or something. So I'm not actually quite sure. Like I said, this set file name function interests me. I'm interested to see what that actually does. It also says it improves the release time lag when wireless flash is used. So it's obviously going to be a little bit quicker. Optimizes exposure algorithm focusing during live view display if the setting effect is off, and improves quality with long exposure noise reduction setting to off. And that's why I read later on that it's fixing that Star Eater issue that was around. So obviously someone's going to test that. I did notice that when I went to New Zealand, because I'd upgraded to the latest firmware on my A7R2, the star shots that I actually did were nowhere near as good as the year before when I didn't have that upgraded firmware. So that Star Eater issue was real, and it did affect my results. So I'm hoping now that that's fixed that. The A7R2 just says basically improves operability of the camera. It also improves that flexible spot focusing, adds live view display into the custom button, adds set file name function, adds visible light. So that's also getting that feature with that flash as well. I'm just hoping that works with the other flash that I've got. Improves release time lag. So it's similar things. The A6500, it's only supporting the new lens for the A6500, that 100 to 400 GM. So that's the only thing that's improving. And it's saying that it optimizes image stabilization performance in movie mode. So they've obviously done something with the image stabilization to include with that. The A6300 gets a reasonable update. It's actually got the power off temp function, so it's got that now in the A6300, which it never had before, so you can keep going if that did heat. The new A6300 I never had overheating issues. I did with the first one I had, but not the replacement one I got. And it's also saying that it supports the new lens. Basically, it's just done another thing, which is one of the movie modes, which is 2:35:1 mode. And it just says it improves the overall stability of the camera. Now, if you do go to this link, you can download there. The download links are actually there for Mac and Windows, so you don't have to go and put each individual camera in. You can just get them straight from here. So I'll be doing that once I finish this, and I'll certainly let you know if there's any issues or anything like that. Guys, please give me a thumbs up. There's a few watching now. Let's get a few people into this. I really appreciate you giving me a thumbs up if you can. So that's that news, which I thought was really, really interesting. And obviously that's that flash that they were talking about if you did want to get that feature of having the low light focusing working. So that's going to be a great thing. And like I said, I may even think about buying one or two of these myself to test this if that's the only flash that actually works with. Now, Sony Alpha rumours. I'm going to go through some rumours here. Let me come down. That's talking about the firmware updates. Now, this is really interesting because basically they're talking about Sigma rumours that they're going to be releasing a 135 f1.8 lens for the Sony mount. Now, the reason why this is so good is because their lenses are rated so highly, almost to the Optus quality, so they really, really are good. I used to have the Sigma 35 1.4 when I used to shoot Nikon, and that was an amazing lens. So I'm really excited about them releasing all of these other lenses, which will be really, really great if that actually happens. I'm excited about these new companies starting to come in, like Samyang and Sigma. So I'm hoping that this does keep expanding with more lenses, and obviously because Sony lenses are quite expensive. If they can give you some of these lenses at a cheaper price, well, I mean, they're saying here that the 135 is only something like a 3 to 4 times less than buying an Optus. So Otis, I mean, they're actually called, not Optus, Otis lenses. So I'm really hoping that's what happens. And a 135 f1.8 would be incredible. I mean, I'd love to try that lens out myself if that is released. So we can keep our fingers crossed, guys. But Sigma, I mean, like I said, I've used them before, and I'm really, really happy with their lenses. Ulrich said Sigma and please. Yes, I agree. Gilbert said sweet little flash. I know it is. It seems like it's a really good little flash. I'll show you the one I use when I'm showing what's in my bag. But like I said, I'm tempted to actually have a look at getting one of those as well. But yeah, I'm really hoping they do release this lens, because it's still a rumor at this stage, but you know, hopefully it'll actually come out. Now, the other thing too is that there's this lens, this down here. I wanted to talk about this. This is an SR4 on Sony Alpha Rumors, talking about the new A7R III that is rumored. They're saying now it's an SR4, so they're saying that it looks like it's going to come out in around about 3 to 4 months at the earliest. We may not see this till probably the end of the year sometime, but they seem to be saying that it's going to be a 60 plus megapixels. There was 2 rumors early on that there was 2 models of this. One was a high frame rate one, and that's clearly what the A9 is, and the other one was this high megapixel sensor that they're saying is 60 plus megapixels. I'm so happy with my A7R II, and file size for me at that point is probably perfect. I probably wouldn't want to go any higher than that, because it starts to really tax your computers, but it's obviously going to be an amazing camera. But that is now come up to an SR4, so you know that's a fairly high rated rumor that's sort of happening. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this comes around before the end of the year. I'm just not convinced it may be an A7R3. It might be an A9R, or it could be an A7R3, or it could even be an A7 III. I'm not sure yet which way they'll go with this and what they'll release, but it's going to be an interesting time, that's for sure, coming up over the next few months. So I'd say if you are hanging out, if you haven't bought the A9, hanging out for more of a high megapixel camera, it's definitely going to happen, and probably sometime later this year. So I'll keep you updated when I hear things of what's actually going on. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of show you that at this stage. Now, another thing as well, this Friedman archive, I'm going to go through this with you. Just let me check a question. 95 said, I really enjoy everything you do, David, but I wanted to give you a couple of updates. The 89 that I have does have some banding. Oh, the A90, is it? Does have banding. It happens under a particular set of conditions. And I suppose that's the thing. I haven't found that A9 does any banding for me yet at this stage. Even the Angry Photographer the other day reviewed it fully, and he said he didn't find it would be either. I think the issue is, as long as you match the, well, they all flicker at a certain rate. Here in Australia, it's 50 hertz. In the US, it's 60 hertz. I suppose England probably is also 50 hertz. I think if you match that, you shouldn't have banding. Is that what you did, 95? Did you actually match it? For instance, if in Australia, if I shoot it at 1/50th or 100th, I shouldn't have banding, or even 1/50th. I shouldn't have banding because I'm matching that shutter rate. If you go fairly fast, that's where the potential is that you could get some sort of banding. So let me know if you did have that banding, what your shutter speed was, because I would be interested to know. Because when I did that last wedding that I showed you, that had incredible challenging lighting that was all different all over the place, and I never had any banding at all. So it's interesting to see that you said that. So let me know Another thing that 95 said also is, lastly, the most troubling thing is that to use the Lexar 150 to 128 cards, I'm consistently having an issue where it's not recognising the cards. Yeah, well, I'm using the Sony brand and also the Samyang. So it's not Samyang. I'm using these two. So I'm using the Extreme Pro. So it's the SanDisk 128, and that's the UHS 2. And I'm also using the Sony card as well, which is the new one that was just released the other day. That's the 300 megabytes one, which is also the UHS 2. I'm not having any issues at all with those cards. To be honest, I've only ever tended to use the cards I've just showed you. I haven't ever used Lexar cards, so I can't say if that's an issue with just that. But the cards that I've been using definitely have not had any issues at all. So that's interesting that you're saying that. You could try, well, you said that you've tried other cards and it's not recognising it. Perhaps you've got an issue with your camera. Because like I said, I'm not having any issues at all with those brands that I'm using. And I've tried the other cards as well, and I haven't had any issues either. But I haven't had Lexar cards, so I can't sort of advise you on that. But let me know too about what your shutter speed was, because I would be interested to know what that was as well. And he also said that he had an overheating event at the wedding as well, with no video outdoors midday. It didn't turn off, but the indicator came on. Were you using the new firmware when that happened? Because I'd be curious to know that too. Now, back to this Friedman archive was a really interesting read. And like I said, I'll have the link for this posted in the comments down below when I finish this. But this is a really great read, because this guy does reviews on all Sony stuff as well, but he's a portrait photographer. And what he's actually done, he's reviewed the 385mm Sony lenses, and he's reviewed the 1.8 Sony, obviously the GM 1.8, and also the Zeiss Batis. And when his conclusion really at the end was that he thought that the Sony was the 1.8 Sony was the best lens of the lot of them. So it'll be interesting to see. Have a read of that and let me know in the comments down below what you think about this article. But I thought it was a really, really good read, and he's tested it thoroughly. It seems to me that 1.8 Sony is actually a really, really good lens. Like I said, I've got the Batis, but that Sony, for the price that it is, seems to be a really, really good lens. So have a read of that article and let me know what you think about it. The main reason why I love the Batis so much is because of the image stabilization, and it's also weather sealed. So I really do like that aspect about that lens. And it's just beautiful in the hand. I just love the feel of it. If I didn't have that, I probably would now just get the 1.8 Sony. The other thing is too, if you're after the full frame rate, that 20 frames per second, you can't get it with the Batis. Well, I don't think you can. I haven't tested it, but it's not supported, I don't think. Whereas the 1.8 Sony, obviously you can get the 20 frames per second on the A9, so that's another thing. But yeah, have a read of that article and have a look. And yeah, Gilbert TV said $600, no brainer. I know it is. It's an amazingly priced lens. That lens, it's amazing. Like I said, I'd get it if I didn't have the Batis, that's for sure. Another thing too, if you have got the A9, this is a really interesting article, because basically it's a focus setting guide that I found online that you can have a look at. Why this is interesting is because basically it takes you through all of the focus settings for using the A9, and I'm pretty sure that you could almost probably use this for the A6500 and some of the other cameras as well. But where it gets interesting is that it actually shows you, when you get down, for separate sports, what it recommends to actually use, the actual focusing scenarios that you'd actually use. So this is a really quite a good article that you can have a read of if you're wondering about how you should set your camera up to get good focus, for instance, if you're doing athletics or winter sports, motorsports, etc. So this is a great article. And like I said, I've also got this in the comments down below. It will be there once I finish this. So you can have a look. It's got things like wild birds, wild animals, trains, other things, archery. It's basically listed everything. And it does tell you about how it thinks you should set these focus settings. And like I said, this probably would work with the A6500 as well, because that focusing is very, very similar. So yeah, that's another really, really interesting article. So have a read of that, and it's A9 focus settings guides. And like I said, I've actually got that in the comments down below. Let me just check. 95 said, on a positive note, the camera's phenomenal in most respects, and I just shot at a concert last night, and it was unbelievable, and the video quality is unmatched. Yeah, no, the video quality is amazing. I'm so hoping they bring out the S-Log, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Ulick said, did you see the new 35? Yep, I'm going to talk about that, Ulick, shortly. 95 said, I just got the new firmware, so hopefully that is a fix for the overheating. Yeah, I hope it does work for you, mate. So it's available now again. So give that a go and let me know how it went. Hussein said, after using the A9, would you say the A6500 is its baby? Is it true the A6500 better autofocus than the A7 II? Oh yeah, look, definitely. The A6500 is in a league of its own if you compare it to the A7R2 and the A7 II. It's so much better than those two cameras, especially the A7 II. The A7R2 I find fairly good, but it's still not in the league of the A6500. And you're right, Hussein, the A6500 is the A9's little baby, and I'm still going to use that camera. I'm not going to get rid of it. I think it's actually an amazing little camera for what it does, and I'm still going to use that in weddings as well. I like to just use multiple cameras rather than changing lenses all the time. I'll often just swap cameras. 95 said, are you using the 1.8 in completely dark concert last night? And it was snappy and phenomenal. Yeah, that's the, was that the 85, 95? Yeah, it probably was. I found the 55 to me to be the fastest focusing lens on my A9. That was incredible, that 55 1.8. That's unbelievable, that lens. Ulick said the A6500 is really better in focus than the A7R2, for sure. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And don't forget, guys, can you please give us a thumbs up? It does help support and push this out to other people. Let's get some more people involved if we can. So yeah, have a look at that focusing balance. Like I said, it's a really, really good article, and that could help you with the A6500 as well. It's great. So I'm certainly going to have a study of that and see sort of what it recommends as I go through all these articles too. Another thing, like I said before, if you have got the A9, the firmware update is back online now. Like I said, it did disappear for a while. I'm not sure why. It worries me a little bit. I'm not quite certain why Sony would have put the firmware there and then taken it off and then just put it back again. But it does have the exact same firmware number. So I would have thought if they'd changed something, it would have had a bit of a different number. But it's not. But it is available now if you want to update that as well. This is another great article as well. If you haven't seen Max Urov's and Paul Nelson's review of the A9, you should go into YouTube, follow the link that I've posted, go and have a look at the review that they've actually done on this. When people say that the A9 is overpriced, it just makes me laugh, especially when you read this review, or when you watch this review, because the A9 actually was quite outstanding for this shoot that they did inside this forest with some runners. So have a look at that. Hi, Ario, how are you? So yeah, have a look at that article, and basically he takes you through a few different scenarios of shooting this runner coming through, coming out of water, things like that. But the low light test is the thing that interests me the most. Excuse me. That was incredible, the low light test that they did. They could almost not see, and the A9 was just blitzing the D5 in low light focus. Now, I noticed the angry photographer the other day said that he wasn't quite happy with the A9 in low light, but I think probably he wasn't using it right, because I used it last night in a dark room, and the focus was absolutely incredible. I couldn't hardly see, and it was still gaining focus. I just saw a video this morning of, I'm not sure who it was, but it was of a Sony Artesian with his son. You can probably find it on YouTube. He was doing it in almost pitch blackness using face detect and eye detect, and the focus was just outstanding. So this review is really, really good. I mean, Max always does great reviews, but have a look at it and sort of have your own opinion about how well these cameras are going to work. Now, you may say at the moment, well, this doesn't interest me because I haven't got an A9, but these functions, guys, are going to come down to the other cameras. The new cameras that are going to be released are going to have basically the same focusing as what the A9 does. The only thing that they may not put in is probably the fast shutter, things like that. But Sony tend to give you a lot of these features in their lower models. So I think you're going to find that this focusing will be available to all the new Sony cameras that are going to come out. So, it's a great thing. Like I said, even if you're not getting the A9, appreciate what Sony are giving, that you are going to get this in cameras soon. Like even probably the new A7, A6 7000 or whatever they want to call it, that when that's released, the A6 500 update. Hussein said, great, because I need a new camera and I'm sick of waiting for the A7 III. I will just get the A6 500 and the Goldmaster 2470 and the Sony 85 1.8 Prime and just keep it as a backup. And you know what, Hussein, that's a great thing to do. If you look at that Leaves video that I put on recently, I tested the video side of that A6 500. It was incredible. The stabilization worked beautiful. The focus worked amazing. That camera is just so good for its price range. And that's why I say I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not even going to get rid of my A6 300 because I'm using that now to do this talk. But, they're all amazing cameras. And, I mean, I'm going to keep them. I very rarely sell cameras anyway. I may sell an A7 II because I've got two of those, and I may sell one of those fairly soon, but that'll probably be the only one that I will sell. But if you were on the sort of thinking about buying a camera, you can't go past the A6 500. And like I said, buy full frame glass, because if you buy the full frame glass, you then can use it on your full frame cameras if you do decide to upgrade. That's the beauty of the Sony system, is that if you do get the APS-C cameras, you can still use full frame glass on it. And you can even use the APS-C glass on the full frame, which I do all the time. If I'm shooting video, I'll often use the APS-C glasses like the 18-105 or the 24 1.8 lens. So it's a great feature. You can't go wrong. And like you said, if you can always use it as your second backup camera. So it's a great thing to do, Hussein. Great idea. Let me have another look over here. Urlik said, do you adapt lens with the MC11 and do you have a better result with the A9? Well, I can't answer that because I don't have adapted lenses at all, Urlik. You'd have to, hopefully someone can chime in the discussion here and sort of talk to you about that use adapted lenses. I'm only purchasing native lenses. That's why I would buy a Sigma if it was released as a native lens, but I'm not interested really in buying adapters. It just, to me, makes it heavier again, and it's just one extra thing that you've got to have on the camera and one other thing that can go wrong. So it doesn't interest me, but someone will probably chime in and say that's using it. Urlik said, new firmware fixed some IBIS trouble. Yeah, well, I'm hoping that it does. I haven't had that IBIS trouble for the A6 500. I know Dave Dugdale had an issue with his IBIS, but that fixed itself when it got banged in transit. So it'll be interesting to see how the firmware sort of handles that. I'm happy with the IBIS in my A6 500, but some others are saying they get that jittering effect. So whether that fixes that, I'm not sure. So some guys who do have that issue, perhaps you can update and let us know when you do update how it goes, and let us know if it does fix that issue. I think it might be a hardware thing, though, that if you're getting that jittering, that you have to send it back into Sony for fixing, but we'll see. So the next article I just wanted to talk about was this. Sony's saying that they're going to add S-Log. Well, Sony aren't saying it. This is just a rumor that was in B&H, and I think a couple of other people are saying it, that they're going to have S-Log onto the A9 and picture profiles. Well, it still hasn't come out, so I am hoping that this does happen. I mean, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that, it does actually happen, but you never know if it's actually going to eventuate or not. But I'm hoping now that it's sort of been pushed out there that it does actually come to life, because that really would help. I don't use S-Log really that much at all, but I do use Gamma as the profile. I'm using PP2 a lot of the time, which lets you use ISO 200 rather than, using ISO 800 or whatever the S-Log profiles use. I think it's Gamma 4 that I use. But yes, I'm hoping they bring those back because apparently the videos, well, I have taken a couple of tests. The video with the A9 is outstanding, and I'll have to do a test myself. I should do one like I did with that falling leaves. I may do that too. And lastly, it is that Samyang have announced this new 35 2.8 lens, the FE, and it's really cheap by the look of it. Let me just click here. because I think it's only $399. That's US. So it's dirt cheap compared to the Sony 35 2.8. Let me just search that. So it's $399. I'm just going to see what the Sony's worth. Let's have a look at that and just see. There you go, it's $798. So there's a massive difference in price. Now, I'm not sure how the quality is yet, because like I said, I haven't tested it, but some people that have actually tested this lens are saying that the results are actually very, very good. You can pre-order it now. I'm not sure when it's going to be available. I think it was fairly soon. It doesn't say when it's actually going to be available. But I see it's rocking on. It's the same lens, so yeah, don't get confused by that. It is actually the same lens. They just call it a different thing. So yeah, and the focusing and everything apparently is really, really good. So the review that I saw of this lens the other day actually said it was very, very sharp. I love my 35 2.8 lens. It's incredibly sharp and it's lovely and small. That's why I like taking it for travel sometimes. If I want to go minimalistic, that's why I love that lens. That's why I'd never sell that lens. Because it is really, really small and light, and it's very, very sharp. And 2.8 is a lovely aperture to be using anyway for street photography. So it is a great street photography type lens. But yeah, so this is going to be coming soon. So, you know, we're starting to see lenses now, guys, that are actually coming out. So it's a great thing that other third-party manufacturers are starting to produce lenses for the Sony system. This can only get better. Ulick's saying, I hear, it should be available in July. No, it's fully automatic, Gilbert. So it's a fully automatic. It's the fully AF system. So yeah, I think you can shoot obviously auto and manual. Yeah, so it's not just manual. No, so it's cheap. It's a really cheap lens for that price. So hopefully this may drive other manufacturers to start producing, and also we may get lenses cheaper that are really quite good. So you know, it's going to be a great thing. So throw up some questions, guys, because we can have some questions too if you want to sort of know anything. I'm going to switch over in a minute and show you what's in my bag, because I'm going to bring that up now, and then we can have a look at some things here. So I'm just going to move over. I'll just move over my tablet and the keyboard. I'll get that out of the way. So what I want to show, before we start, I'll just sort of talk about this. I've now got the battery grip. Actually, I'll show you that in the other frame in a minute so that we can look at that. Now, I wanted to just show you that today. I wanted to show you the flash that I'm using. I'm using this, which is the HLV 60s. Now, I think that this is still rated more power than what that other flash was that I showed you before. But the things that I love about this is when it's actually on the camera, how you can actually twist the top. So basically, and I'll show you this from the other angle when I'll put it on the camera shortly. But there's a few things that I love about this, and the fact that it has a built-in light, and you can turn. I won't put that on because it'd blow the camera there. But you can fire that up, and you can control it on the back of the camera. How powerful that actually is. It's a great way of getting focus. Often if you're in a really dark environment, you can just run this light just to get the focus and then turn it off and then actually take your shot. So it's a really good unit. You know, and it's like most other flashes in the fact that, you know, you've got your diffuser that you can bring over and your little bounce card that you can use as well. I've got 3 of these that I use. And I'll sometimes use them on camera, but more than often I'll actually put them onto this Photix wireless device here that, you know, that it will actually just sort of plug into here, and then you lock it and it won't come out. That actually then can be put onto a tripod or something else. So that's the system that I actually tend to use for off-camera flash if I'm not using my Profoto units. And this works really good. I've never ever had issues of this not firing. You've got your groups up there as well, and your channels as well that you can all use. And this has worked fantastic for me. The other thing too that I use is this is to control it on the camera, which is the Photix, the Photix unit that sits onto your camera. This is the transceiver. That's the receiver. This is the transmitter. And again, you know, it's great because you can have all your channels. You just choose your channel like this, and then if you want to basically control your compensation, your flash compensation, you can just move it in and out. It's just so good. And you know, you can actually control your zoom through here. It's got your high-speed sync button, things like that on there. You can go just mode and change it to manual if you want to. There's aperture priority and off and TTL. It's a great little unit, and it's very, very quick to use. And again, I've never ever had any issues with this not firing, so it's terrific. And this one has just been released. I did have the older version before this. This is the version 2. But a great way of having off-camera flash if you don't want to buy the higher end gear. And these work really, really great. But the thing I love about this is this little flash unit, and it's even got a little diffuser there. And you actually can use this to actually light up a subject if you want to use continuous light. It actually is incredibly bright. You would be amazed how bright this is. It actually hurts your eyes. So it's an incredible useful feature. But I'll just switch back to this other camera for a minute, because I'll show you how it sort of, the good thing about this on the actual camera itself, because when you actually stick these on, if you're to go in between portrait and landscape, this is the only camera that I've known that will actually do this. So basically, I'm just going to come back. But when you're shooting like this, if you wanted to bounce off the roof, it'll work well. But then if you wanted to go this way, it's no longer working. Well, all you have to do with this is twist that so it will actually come off that way. So that, you know, that's just such a fantastic idea that it's got that device of being able to twist. So it's just a brilliant function, and I don't know why other manufacturers haven't done that. So yeah, you know, it's just a great flash, and it's incredibly powerful. Early versions of this apparently overheated, but the new versions never have. They fixed that, so I've never had that overheat. Just let me check some questions. Oreo said, I like the light on the flash, brilliant idea. I know, and I've never seen that before, and it's just an amazing idea. And I showed one before, Oreo, that has the same thing, I think. That's the new one that's come out. Ulrich said, I have to leave, David. Thanks for the live. I will see you, watch it later. That's fine. Is there a Sony flash control by the camera body wireless and not on a camera controller? I don't think so. There is a new controller out for Sony. I'm not sure how that works, Hussein. So I know there is a new wireless flash that works from Sony, and I'm not sure whether it works with that new flash that I did. We'll have to have a look at that later on. Someone may want to chime in about that new Sony flash. Does it still have to have a receiver with the new Sony wireless? I haven't reviewed that yet or seen it yet, so I can't comment about that. The other thing too was I've got the battery grip now finally for the A9. I'm not sure how much I'll use it because, like I said, I like the minimalistic size of the cameras, but you know, I suppose it is nice if you're starting to go into portrait mode as against sort of doing something landscape. And it does feel really nice in your hand. I have to admit, like, it does feel really, really beautiful in your hand. But I don't know how much I'll use it because, like I said, I do like to travel sort of minimalistic. And Hussein said because Sony owns the design. Oh, they do they? Is it patented to them? And like I said, I use that all the time. In dark receptions, it's a lifesaver because I can just, like I said, quickly switch it on, get focus, and then turn it off just with a push of the button on the back, and then I don't have that flash on. It's great. I mean, it's an amazing feature. All right, so I'm going to go over to the latest shoot because I want to show you this. Well, it's not the latest shoot, but I just wanted to actually show you a shoot coming up that I did because I always like to sort of go through shoots with you to sort of give you ideas about how I work. So I'm going to switch over to the desktop. And I'll make this a bit bigger so that you can see the image a bit bigger. Let me move that over there. Yeah, now this is also showing, I like it when my assistant grabs stuff off the background because it'll show you how it's being used. Now, this at this stage also has the Rode VideoMic Pro on there because remember, I shoot Fusion, so I'm actually shooting video at the same time that I'm doing photography here. So I'd shoot a little bit of video and then I'd grab some stills. And this is where I like to sort of show the images. Oh, let me pull out here because I'll I'll take this filter off because I'll show you the image that I got from that. It was actually this one. So basically you can see there that I'm using, I think it's probably the 35 1.4, is it? Yeah, it's the 35 2.8. So there you go. I'm using that 35 2.8 lens here that I was just talking about a minute ago, that really, really small one, which I love. And then it's given this. So you can see it gives a lovely out of depth, out of focal area there, which is, oh no, this is the 35 1.4. So it is the 35 1.4. Yeah, and I always like to grab these detail shots that give something a little bit different of, say, having the beer and then the guys behind that are out of focus. And I'll often do this with the girls as well, in the fact that they'll have their wine glasses or their champagne. It's lovely because it's just a nice thing. Always remember that when you're shooting these things like weddings, try and give as much detail as you can, because they're things later on that still make a difference when they're starting to put their album together. Another thing, I always like to show this because this is one of my shots that I always show. Again, you can see where I'm working from up there. I'm using this may have been the video, I'm not sure. I'll check in the next one, but you'll see the result that I get. I think I just changed lenses. Always I go up high, I'll stand on a chair and shoot down. I'll usually use the 85. So when I switch over, this is probably going to be the 85mm in a minute. This is from behind the scenes, so this is my assistant grabbing this. This is why she's using the 35 2.8. But you can see that I'm using the 85, or it may even be the 55. We'll check in a second. Yeah, I've used the 55. So this is using the 55 1.8. And again, it's nail focus. This is great for, like I said, sharing for the makeup artist and things like that, even sometimes the flowers. But it gives that beautiful fall off when you get up high. It's nail the focus on the eye, and everything else is sort of out of focus. I'm just going to open up this thing so I can draw on it for you. Don't remind me. Remember, that's your critical focus area point. So basically, that's the area that I'm going to go off. And I want all of this to all fall out. It's beautiful if you can get that to be really, really soft. Like I said, the main focal point for me is the eyes and the eyelashes, and that's why I'll get them to sort of bend down, looking at that area. And being up really high like that gives you that ability. Like, you can't do this from down low. This is why you have to get up very, very high when you're shooting this type of shot. Even if you had to stand on a table or something like that, or sometimes I'll take a ladder and stand up on a ladder and use the 85. That distance was what forced me to use the 55 1.8 in this case. Usually I'll use the 85 Batis 1.8, but the result still was, quite lovely. Another thing too is I always tend to try and give the customers a couple of different versions, because it's nice to, when you're doing them, to do a couple of different ones. This had quite challenging lighting here, but I'll always sort of give a color one, and I always like to try and really make sure that I'm getting this detail, because remember, again, when I was saying about detail in the dress, they pay so much for the dress that you don't want to blow out this detail in the dress. So I'm always trying to make sure that I've always got stacks and stacks of detail in the dress. It's so important to me, and especially if you're going to start sharing this with the dress designer and, in the shop where she bought the dress from, that they can advertise it. If you've done that, well then you're just going to make more money, because they're going to advertise you freely. So always remember to take that into consideration. And one of the looks that I love is this vintage type look, and it is one of my styles that I'll tend to use an awful lot. Again, you can sort of see that when I sort of looked at this, you've got the leading lines, which is sort of dragging up through here, so it forces you to look sort of up over this area. And again, I've tried to keep all the detail in the dress, and just make sure if you ever do something like this shoot, try and have the bride sort of look away to the side. If she's looking directly up this way, it can tend to look a little bit boring. So have the bride sort of looking either this way or this way, which will give you, at least you can see her face, and it makes the image sort of a lot nicer to look at. Hussein said, "I love your white balance." Thanks, Hussein. Again, if you're looking at what I was saying about last week about your cropping, don't be afraid to submit images like this where you've cropped in tight top and bottom, because this image, when it was done, clearly had stacks of images up the top here and down here. But remember, this is the area that I'm trying to sell. So crop it tight, because they can, if they want to get this printed, you can get them printed that way, and they'll just they'll just crop off the white part of the paper that's top and bottom. And they're beautiful when you get them done this way. So try and give them a different cropping outlook to your images. Don't just stick by that typical 6x4 or 8x12 cropping scenario. Always try and go outside of that. Another one of the shots that I always try and get is this type of shot where the bride and groom are sort of kissing together, and usually my assistant, she'll be standing off here throwing the veil, and then I'll count to 3 and she'll run, and she'll be cropped out. Sometimes I'll have to retouch her out. But again, even though this is high contrast here, remember, I've exposed for the highlights, so I'm still keeping the highlights in the dress, remembering to not blow those highlights out. Again, critical. If you were trying to get ahead in weddings, learn to really hold the highlights. It's really, really important to hold those highlights. That's where these Sony cameras are so amazing, because you can bring back the shadows. Remember, expose for your highlights. This next one, again, is typical of my style with the vintage type look that I adore. Going through, I'll just take off this latest shoots. I just love this type of vintagey, dark type look. But see, this is me. This style is not for everyone. And sometimes some people say, "Oh, I don't like the images, David. They're too dark." But that's me, and my brides hire me for this, because they've seen this type of work from me. They hire me knowing that this is the type of work that I'm going to actually get. So the thing for me is, you show the type of work that you want to produce. So I'm sharing this work all the time. So I know when people hire me that they expect this from me. And this is the type of work that I love to do. And this is my style, guys. So, try if you can to get yourself in a style in this niche, and then follow that and stick to it if you can. JLA Studio said, "Hey, David. Hi, how are you?" So I love that. I love that you can still see these. The background is really sort of taken out. It brings a focus to them, and it's just beautiful. And the sky looks really quite powerful, even though this has sort of that mottly, matty type vintage look. I really do love it. We'll go to the next one. This is another one where I'm talking about cropping. Hussein said it's like an old painting. Yeah, I know it is, and it is. These actually, all of these images were actually just published in a bride magazine here in Melbourne. And I didn't have to pay for that, obviously. They actually just used it in their publication. So I've had this published twice now, this wedding. So, and again, that's just free advertising that my work's been published a couple of times. This was another one where they're standing on that lake at the other side there. It was beautiful. There's birds everywhere that were flying over. It's got a beautiful sunset that was sort of coming through. It was just lovely. And again, I've tried to use that thing of talking about the cropping with eliminating the top and bottom. I love that aspect. And the thing for me, one of the features that I always sell in prints is this is the type of classical image that I'll sell in print. And the reason why is that too many brides sometimes will choose a photo where they're the main part of the image. And the problem is that can become quite boring over a period of time. Whereas this is more like landscape. And that's the thing that I'll sort of discuss with the brides when they come into me, that this is more like an environmental landscape type picture. So you can hang this on your wall, and basically it's not just about you. You're just part of this whole scene. And they never get bored of this type of image. So this is why I love selling these sort of things for big canvases and big prints. And I think they're the ones that sell best for me. So do consider that when you're shooting in a wedding, do consider for having something that's like this, that is showing the environment that they're actually in. And it's an amazing thing to actually get. And then you sort of look that they're obviously they're centered, and it's fine to put a bride and groom center. You don't have to worry so much about rules of thirds with bride and grooms. Break that rule. But there's some birds flying at the top up here. There's one also over here. But I've sort of tried to frame this with them deliberately in the center, and I've also made sure that they're in the reflection in the water down here as well. So again, it's just lovely to frame, and it's just lovely to print and put on your wall. Like I said, it's an environmental shot. Vic Witchcraft said the orientation requires a custom frame also. Yes, it does. And all of my frames, I get them printed, but then they'll go to a custom framer. And that's not an issue. I mean, it's not that much to get frames done, but they look so much better. Once you put the mat in the frame and they're framed this way on a wall, again, it's instantly got impact because it's not just that typical 8x12 or 6x4 format that you'll normally see. Another image that I can show you here is the bride and groom kissing. Again, I've tried to make sure that, I've captured, this was incredibly challenging actually. It was very, very dark to get this image. But again, I've got where the bride has kept all her detail in her dress as well. I have lightened up the faces a little bit too, so you can sort of see through there that it's been lit up. And there's light that's sort of coming down, through these areas to give a little bit of contrast on that side as well. This was lit by two flashes, basically there was one on this side and one on this side, which, forced the light to actually come in a little bit. But again, it's got that type of typical look that I'll like to use and give to brides that's a little bit different, a little bit dark, that has my style that I just adore. And again, if we go through to the next one, this was another one that I like to do too. This was one where this was shot with the A7R2. Again, this is one where the new A9 would focus a lot easier because this is so backlit. It had trouble focusing because, see, you've got the sun basically coming through here. So the A9 would probably handle this a lot better. I did get it, but it took me a couple of goes to actually get this because it was so strongly backlit. And I tried to meter basically for here and also down on the bride's dress to make sure that didn't blow out. But because it's being so heavily backlit, I had to overexpose this a little bit, because if I didn't, the image would have looked completely black, because it's going to meter basically from here. This is what the main part that's causing your exposure, because that's so bright that it will force all of this to be incredibly dark. So I had to go over a little bit in the exposure to bring that back. But I love that image. It's just beautiful. Late at night is gorgeous just before the sun actually goes down. And again, she just loved these images. And like I said, this was published twice in a magazine. Another one here sort of showing you how I like that dark look again. This is just the bride and groom kissing in front of the this love sign that's there. And again, this is just typical of my processing. I'm not saying everyone will love this type of look. They probably won't, but this is the type of look that I love, and it's the type of look that the brides who are hiring me love as well. So, again, it's quite dark, but again, I've kept the details so that the dress details are showing. You can even see all the detail in the foliage in the background. And even in his suit, you can sort of see the detail that's actually coming through his suit as well. And finally, just the dancing. I just wanted to talk about this because just make sure when you're doing your dancing shots that you do still show some of the environment. Like, I could have easily cropped this, in sort of here, but I think where this helps is to have this bit of environment that's sort of showing up the top to sort of show the room that they're in. And again, this was just shot with that flash that I showed you a minute ago, just on camera. And I deliberately shot this so that I would see a bit of movement in the dress, because if it was frozen too much, I like that bit of movement that you're sort of seeing in the dress, because it gives a bit of movement and flow to this. So you don't always have to make images just dead sharp. They can be moving and sort of dynamic, and it's good sometimes to sort of show that when you're shooting these, that you can get that look as well. And again, I think it's exposed pretty well considering it was so dimly lit. This was ISO 1000 this was shot at, and this was the 35 1.4 at 1.4. So I'm just going to bring back my face, so you can see my lovely face again. And let's just go to questions. So let me know if you have any questions, guys. We've got a lot watching. Now, don't forget, if you aren't watching now, you can leave questions down below, and I will get back to you. Like I said, I always respond to all my questions personally. Please give me a thumbs up if you can. And obviously, if you're not subscribed to me, please subscribe. I'm just near 5,000. I can't thank you guys enough. You just don't understand how much I appreciate you guys sort of growing with me in this YouTube channel. So I just can't thank you enough, guys. And that's why I just love doing this, showing my shoots and sort of all this sort of stuff to hopefully help you guys grow with me. And that's the thing for me, because I came from a teaching background. I taught photography in a university for 20 years before I taught fashion, before I photographed fashion for a number of years too before that. But I love the teaching aspect of it, and that's why I love to show this sort of stuff. I am going to start bringing things like showing you how to do some color correction and things like that too, because I'm very strong in color theory. So I'm actually going to start teaching color theory to you all as well, and show you how that can be help you with your color correcting in Photoshop and things like that, like if you have casts and things like that. So I'm going to do a tutorial on that soon to show you how that works as well. I think I'm going to keep these live shows like they are today at this time, so it'll sort of be a weekly thing around this time. It's easier for me to do it a bit earlier, plus it then helps the people in the UK be able to watch as well, and a few others can watch, and then it also gives me the day that I can do what I need to do after that as well. So let me know if you've got any questions. So let's throw some questions up, guys. Gilbert said, love what you do. Thank you, Gilbert. Ahmed said, what about the Sony 85 1.8? Is it good for wedding? Yes, it'd be amazing. And that, like I said, if I didn't have the Batis 85, I'd be buying that Sony 85 1.8. The GM, even though it's obviously a fantastic lens, doesn't interest me because it's too heavy. I'm happy with a 1.8 aperture, so for me, I'd probably, and for the money that is, like it's crazily cheap. Vic Witchcroft said, how many shooters do you use on a wedding? It depends, at least one extra, sometimes two. It depends. It depends which wedding package they actually choose, and whether I'm doing fusion and things like that. If I'm shooting fusion, sometimes I'll have up to four, so it just depends. Hussein said, we appreciate your time, effort and talent, David. Thank you so much, Hussein. Oreo said, David, yours is by far the best and most useful Sony mirrorless-based vlog that I know. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Gilbert said, hey, good move, David. Oreo said, at this time I can watch it live. And yeah, that's why I'll probably be doing it about this time too, because I think it's good. So I probably will do it now this day, which is Friday here. But I'll probably make it at this time every week now. So you guys will know. I would love to be your second shooter someday. Well, you can be. I do have people that join me. I often advertise on Facebook for someone to come along. So, see, unlike a lot of photographers, I'm not scared of showing anyone anything, and I think we all should work together. Now, I often do have people that will just follow me for the day. Now, if they do that, they're going to have to carry some gear for me, something like that. But they can watch how I work, what I do, and they usually just lug the gear around for me. And I'll offer that all the time to people, up to interns that just want to learn. And I do that through Facebook. So, yeah, that's offered quite a lot. Hussein said, would you prefer 3 primes, 28, 50, or 85, or a 24-70? I'd prefer the primes, but that's just me. The primes that I'm using are the 35, 1.4, and I use the 55 and the Zeiss Batis 85. They're the primes that I'm tending to use. I do take the 70-200, but I'll only use that if I need compression. My second shooter uses a 70-200 though, because she stands back from me away and she'll be shooting from distances. She will be using that to capture. So there is a 70-200 being used, but I don't use them. The only time I'll use them are in the formals if I want to have compression to bring something in from the background. That's when I'll start to use the 70-200 lens. But apart from that, I like to use the primes. Like I said, the A6500, the 24 1.8. Oh, I just adore that lens. Em said, watching from New York. Hi, Em. How are you? So keep throwing some questions, guys, because we'll have a little bit longer. Not sure how long we've been going. Nearly an hour. So, yeah, I'll have to cut off in a minute. But throw me some more questions down. Let me know if you are all going to upgrade to that latest firmware. Like I said, that was released today, so make sure you all do that. I will, and someone said, let me know when you're around New York City, and I will. I may be coming there next year. I'm not sure. It'll either be England or America, so I'll let you know, because if I do come to the US, we'll all have a meetup. saying you will have the time to change lenses. Yeah, look, it takes 2 seconds to change lenses. But sometimes, like I said, I'm carrying multiple cameras. So I'll have, for instance, on me, I have a Spider Holster Pro, so they're around my waist. I'll always have, well, now I'll have the A9 on one side, and I'll have the A7R2 on the other side. And sometimes I'll even carry the A6500 on a shoulder strap through here, and they'll all have different lenses. So all I'll do is pick up that camera and go bang and shoot straight away. So I'm not really changing lenses because I'm carrying multiple cameras. The beauty is with the Sony system, they're so light that I can carry 2 cameras without even breaking a sweat. When I used to do that with Nikon, at the end of the day, honestly, it used to take me 2 days to get over the wedding at the end because my back was shot. That's one of the main reasons why I went to Sony. Now I can carry 2 of these cameras and just quickly go up and go bang, and I don't have to change lenses. It's all there. And to be honest, sometimes the less you change lenses, the better it is, especially with Sony cameras, because dust becomes an issue with these cameras. If you are changing lenses, you can just be thinking immediately that you're going to start getting dust on the lens or actually on the sensor. So I change my lenses very, very rarely, and I don't really have problems with sensor dust. So, that's one good thing. But, yeah, I'm using multiple cameras. So we still got Stacks watching. So any other questions, guys, before we call it a day? It's coffee time starting to appeal to me. I'm going to go and have my morning coffee in a minute. Like I said, leave any questions down below. I will put all the links to those new articles that I shared before into the comments box down below. They're not there yet, but I'll put them in once that's done. And then if you have any questions, like I said, leave them down below and I'll get back to you pretty soon. I have got intentions over the coming weeks to sort of talk about how my wedding business is set up, and I'll show you how I do albums, the software that I use and the companies that I use, all those sort of things. So, and how I market my business and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to sort of talk to you about that in the coming weeks. Gilbert T said, thank God for Sony. I love the smaller form factor. I know. It's just, I could never go back. That's why I bought that battery grip, because it was cheap. I got $100 off, but I'm not sure how much I'll use it. I may use it if heat becomes an issue, because some people are saying that with the battery grip you don't get overheating, but I haven't had overheating yet. I may use it, but I'll see. But the battery life is incredible. Like I said, that last wedding I did 700 photos and I still had 60% battery left. Gilbert, go to bed, mate. It's 1:30 in the UK. It's time for your bed. Time to go to bed. Any more questions, guys, before we sign off? Do you go to South Queensland much? No, not, well, look, I haven't for a while. I shot a couple of weddings up in Cairns last year, which was really, really good. I haven't gone up there much because, to be honest, at the moment, I've just been going to Thailand for holidays and places like that. Like, I've been travelling overseas, which tends to be cheaper than just travelling in Australia. But I do love Queensland. Rick said, eagerly awaiting your visit to New York. Another Aussie. Yes, he did move to New York. Yeah, he did move. What's his name? I can't remember. Send me his name because I've just gone blank. I have a problem with Lightroom, very laggy. I have a monster PC. Yes, look, it is. And I'm using a Mac Pro. I'm using a really, really expensive Mac computer with stacks of RAM, and I think it's got 64 gig of RAM and multiple processors and stuff, and Lightroom is still laggy, especially with the A7R2. It's really slow, and it's getting slower and slower. I just hope that Lightroom, Adobe do something about that, because it is sort of lagging behind and it's taking forever to write previews. That's right, Matt. Yeah. It's taking ages to get things to write, like the previews are taking. When I import images in, it's taking ages to do. Yeah, and they really need to do something. Like, I even thought about moving to Capture One, but I don't know, apparently that's got such a massive learning curve as well. And I do love the cataloging that Lightroom has. Matt Granger, that's it. I don't know why I went so blank. It's stupid of me. Yeah, he's moved to America. It is, Empha said, how do you pronounce your last name? It's Oastler. Yeah, so it's David Oastler. People never, ever can pronounce that name. It's really hard. I'll get Oastler, Oastly. It's all funny names. So, yeah, so it's actually Oastler, Oastler. Quite a more of a popular name in Canada, actually, apparently. Like, there's an Oastler Lake, things like that over there, apparently. Gilbert said, I've just started using Lightroom. about time for an update. I know they really should rewrite it. The problem is I think there's still that much old code in it. They do probably need to do a complete rewrite, but I don't know when that's going to happen. But everyone's saying it's slow, and it is. I don't know how they're going to fix it, but at the moment I'm locked into it, so it's become an issue for me. Any other last questions, guys, before we go? Let me know. Oh, make sure, just as we finish, make sure you have a look at the Angry Photographer meeting with Jason Lanier. That's going to be hilarious, I think. They're buddies now, so they're best friends. I saw a picture this morning where they had their arms around each other. It's really funny. So obviously they're going to become best buddies. You're going to see a shoot, I think, with them doing it together. So follow that. That's going to be hilarious. Like I said, the Angry Photographer cracks me up. I think he's actually a pretty good bloke. And like I said, Jason, I admire. He's a really great bloke as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing those shoots coming up. What do you think of the Sony apps? Well, I like them. I'm spewing that the A9 doesn't have... Spewing means you're upset. That's an Australian term. I'm spewing that the A9, you can't put apps on there at all, which is really annoying. Like, I'm using the Play Memories hack on the A6300 here, and that's why this has been recording for so long. Otherwise, I would have had to stop at 30 minutes. So that's given me the ability now when I'm shooting weddings and things like that to have it constantly running. Which is amazing. Now, I can't do that with the A9. The other thing is I do like using quite a few of the apps on there where you can change the gradation of the sky and stuff like that. The time-lapse app and things like that are really, really good. And I use them quite a lot. So I'm really upset that they haven't put that on the A9. I know they're saying it's a professional camera, but still, some of those apps, even though they sound corny, are actually quite professional. I will talk about that in another talk, actually, if you like. Hussein said, yeah, I saw that. I think the Angry Photographer fans are going to kill him. I know, it's going to be funny. I mean, I don't know how it's all going to pan out because everyone hated each other so much. It's going to be hilarious. Rick Mentone said, just love your work and your openness. Sharing, thanks. Thanks so much, Rick. I really appreciate that, mate. That means a lot to me. So any other questions, guys? Like I said, I'll be on the same time next week. I'm going to do this day next week as well. Let's see if there's any other questions. Now, the intro part, which was the pre-show, I'll cut out once this has been up for a little bit. Otherwise, we can say no. Goodbye. Looks like it might be finished. So, well, we might call it a day there, guys. And like I said, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll put those down below, and I'll answer them. Like I said, I always answer everything personally. And I'll see you again with another video. I'll post up another shoot probably early next week as well, and we'll probably have another couple of live chats. I may do some spontaneous ones, but like I said, I have got some interesting things that I want to share with you over the coming weeks, which is colour theory and how to correct for colour problems in Photoshop and all stuff like that. So they'll be in the coming weeks. Hussein said that's all. Thanks, mate. All right, well, bye, mate. Bye, guys, and I'll see you again soon. And it's coffee time for me, so